Good afternoon, good morning or good evening wherever you are in the world. We're back with another one of Nathan Bell's commentary videos, and today Nathan wants to talk about Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, well, today I'm going to talk about Operation Paperclip. Just to quote Wikipedia quickly from the start of the Wikipedia article on this subject, Wikipedia says, Operation Paperclip was a secret United States intelligence program in which more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers and technicians were taken from former Nazi Germany to the US for government employment after the end of World War II in Europe between 1945 and 59. Some were former members and leaders of the Nazi Party. Right, I learned about Operation Paperclip probably about 8 years ago while I was doing my big binge of world research on the internet. When I first learned about it, I was a bit surprised to think that the US government would employ former Nazis. Some people would say that's a pretty bad thing to do, to bring people from that ideology and that regime into the US to work for the government. So it's an interesting subject. It shows that the military is more interested in advancing their own agenda, their own technological capability, and their own wartime ability. They're more interested in that than worrying about the philosophy or the ethics of the people they're employing. It shows that the military and the US government is more interested in advancing itself than about ethical issues. Should the US military and the US government have employed former Nazis? I think it's important to note that a lot of the scientists that worked for the Nazis weren't necessarily personally invested in the Nazi agenda. Some of them were forced to work for the Nazis. You know, the Nazis forced a lot of people to work for them who didn't really believe in their cause. And some people were just unfortunate that they were Germans when the Nazis took control in Germany and sort of got stuck in the whole thing of World War II. They didn't really, a lot of Germans didn't believe in the Nazi Party, and I think a lot of these scientists who ended up working for the Nazis probably personally didn't believe in the views of the Nazi Party. But certainly a lot of the Nazis that were taken to work in America after World War II did believe passionately in the Nazi cause. So, it's an interesting thing. Should we employ people who were once the enemy and whose ideology and philosophy we fundamentally disagree with, and who were involved in a movement that which perpetrated genocide and killed millions of people? Should they be given the opportunity then to come over and work for our side? And many people would immediately say no. Most people would think immediately anyone who associated with the Nazi Party belongs in prison. But many of these Nazis that were brought over to work in America went very far in the American establishment. Some of them went to work in NASA and ended up having high-ranking positions in NASA. When I first learned about Operation Paperclip, I started thinking things like, oh God, the US government is infested with former Nazis. I mean, I'm sure many of them who then spent years living and working in America maintained their Nazi philosophy and their Nazi ideology, and they were still passionate Nazis. So it's like the Americans just invited this philosophy into their country. They invited this regime and members of this regime and this party in to participate in their society. So, do we think that was a good decision? I remember reading that the president who made the decision to launch Operation Paperclip and to bring these Nazis over was very indecisive about whether it was the right thing to do for quite some time before he decided that it was necessary because of rising tensions with the Soviet Union. They seemed to justify bringing these Nazis into their employment because of the threat posed by the rising Soviet Union. They felt they needed adequate technology and adequate science to combat the Soviets. But it just shows how the military and the American government is willing to compromise on ethics and morality in the name of furthering their agenda. And that's really all I have to say about Operation Paperclip, is again that it just shows that the US government is willing to compromise on morality and ethics to further their own global agenda, which has been my view of the American government for a long time. But let's have a look at a bit of what Wikipedia says about Operation Paperclip briefly. You can do your own research about Operation Paperclip. The effort began in earnest in 1945 as the Allies advanced into Germany and discovered a wealth of scientific talent and advanced research that had contributed to Germany's wartime technological advancements. The US Joint Chiefs of Staff officially established Operation Overcast on July 20th, 1945, with the dual aim of leveraging German expertise to assist in the ongoing war effort against Japan. See, this is what I think about the military at the end of the day. The military, particularly the American military, I have observed over my life, doesn't care for morality and ethics, you know. They present this position that they stand for this righteous cause, and that they want to further a good cause, especially the Americans, that they want to further a good and just cause in the world. But then when you look at their operations, things like this, things like Operation Paperclip, they compromise on ethics and they compromise on morality all the time. So it really is just an agenda of dominance in the global geopolitical sphere, and they will do whatever is necessary to achieve dominance. See, you know, it's been my view of the US military in particular and the US establishment that they just want global dominance in the geopolitical sphere. And that's been my view of the American government for a long time. And things like this, when you learn about things like this, hiring thousands of former Nazis into your employ just to further technological advancements, it just shows that it's all just about global dominance. It isn't about furthering a just cause. It isn't about morality. It isn't about being righteous in the world or being the just righteous leaders or building a better society for the majority of humanity. It's just about being powerful and being in control, and they will do whatever is necessary to be in control. They don't care if someone they employ has been directly implicated in the genocide of millions of people, as long as they have the skills that they need to get the job done of taking over the planet. So, you know, it's disappointing to learn that the American military and the American government was happy to bring all these many of them war criminals over and bring them into the employ of their services. But that's what happened, and it just shows, as I said, it just shows that they're willing to compromise on ethics and morality to achieve their long-term agenda of dominating the global community. So that's really all I have to say about Operation Paperclip. I was a bit surprised when I learned about this, and I started to think that the American institution was infested with Nazis, and they probably brought their philosophies in and started talking to people in the organisations they were working for about their philosophies, and it shows that there must be a huge Nazi influence in America after having employed so many of them directly into their establishment. The Nazi influence must be huge. And does it really surprise you? It doesn't surprise me that there would be a huge Nazi influence in the American establishment. You can see it in their conduct and behaviour. But, you know, drop a comment in the comment section anyway about if you were aware of Operation Paperclip and whether you think it was a compromise on ethics to employ over 1,600 former Nazi Party members into the American establishment.